Welcome to another episode of Simple Thoughts. Today I'm going to be talking about the importance of a character's gender or sexuality when it comes to creating them or writing a story. Now, the thing about gender when it comes to like movies, TV shows, and cartoons as well, the thing is a lot of people like to make the argument that you really need to, make sure you include girls, include boys, and stuff like that. And the thing is, a lot of people like to give credit to certain characters or certain shows because, hey, they have a lot of girls in here, or they got a lot of boys in here, the girl power, boy power, stuff like that. And the thing about it is, people tend to make the mistake of believing just because, there's some women here, that must mean, they're really progressive, they're really writing a good story. And it's like, but the thing is, you're not. Just because you added women doesn't mean you made a good story. It just means you added women. What is it about those women that makes them interesting? Like the thing about character creation in general is, who is your character? You need to figure out, what is this character's likes? What is this character's dislikes? What is their desires? What are their dreams? And when you just focus so heavily on just writing a story that's based around the fact that they're a female or a male, let's face it, you're not going to have a good character. They're going to be bland, boring, and nothing's going to stand out about them. Like, that's the one thing about a lot of movies, is that the most memorable characters are always the characters that have some type of distinction to them, have something about them, something that just makes them stand out above everybody else. Out of a whole group of say males, you have a male character. It's like they have something about them that makes them stand. They need something about them in terms of their personality that makes them stand out above all the other males. And the same goes for female characters. Like the thing about it is, when it comes to gender, it can work. Writing a story based around just the character's gender can work depending on the on mainly like what you're trying to get across. The idea that girls can do this type of stuff too. Yeah, but the thing is, you gotta still write an interesting character. Like, it can't just be the fact that they're a girl. Like a good sample of this would be like a lot of shows back in like the 80s and the 90s. Well, mainly the 80s though. They had this problem of writing female characters, and they did not know what the hell they were doing. Like Lola Bunny from Space Jam, she was bland, she was boring, there was nothing interesting about her except for the fact that she's a female Bugs Bunny. And she didn't really act like a female Bugs Bunny, it's just she's a girl. The only thing about her is that she's a girl Looney Tune, aside from Granny and Witch Hazel. So, really, there was nothing to her. There was nothing special about her. And thankfully, when it came to revamping the Looney Tunes for the Looney Tunes show, they decided, we're going to do this differently. And what we're going to do is have her have a personality. We made her quirky, we made her weird, we made her pretty excitable. We made her pretty ditzy when it comes to a lot of things. And it worked so much better that people like this new Lola now. Because she's so different from what we've seen before. She has actual personality. She has identity outside of the fact that she's a girl. That's just one example. Like, that's something you always gotta pay attention to when creating your characters. You just need to make sure they have personality. Like, it's one thing to write a story based around the fact that, the struggles of being whatever gender. But the thing is, you still need to make sure you have a personality behind that character. Because otherwise, why should we remember this character? Just because they've gone through this journey. It's like, great, they went through that journey, but who is that character? Do I want to see them again? Like, there has to be something that makes us want to see that character again. Like, that was sort of the problem with a lot of, even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, they had this problem with, I think the character's name was Venus, or Venus de Milo, maybe, and she was like the female Ninja Turtle, but there was nothing to her. In fact, they don't really use her ever. They don't use her anymore, because it's like, there's really nothing to her. Like, it's just the fact that she's female. like she's a female Ninja Turtle. It's like, okay, why did we need this? Or a good example is Webby from DuckTales back from the 80s cartoon. She was very much just the female Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Actually, no, I can't even say she was the female Huey, Dewey, and Louie. She was different from Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Granted, they were the same character pretty much, but I digress. Like, she was just a female character. That's all it was, is that she's female, just a female kid character for them, for the boys to kind of have that whole boy versus girl dynamic. And it was just kind of stupid, honestly. It's like, you gotta put more emphasis in, you gotta put personality to them, you know? There has to be something that, you know, gets us interested in anything this character does. And thankfully, with the new DuckTales, they fixed her. They gave her a personality. Granted, a lot of people accuse her of being like Mabel, but even I couldn't even go that far. I'm sorry, I just can't. But either way, she has a personality. She's distinct from her original counterpart. She has something special about her in terms of her personality. Something that we all can just be like, that, I know this character, and I'm probably going to remember this character because of the way they act. Like, that's sort of the main thing, and the same goes for writing, say, a boy character. Like, if you're writing a show that has a lot of girl characters, and then you gotta have the one boy, like, you gotta have personality to him. You don't want to make him just your basic boy character. It's like, oh, I love sports, football, and stuff like that. It's like, give him some likes, give him some wants, give him some desires, make him have it. He has to have identity. Like, that's the one thing you gotta understand when writing or creating characters, is that they always have to have something, some type of special thing about them that makes them stick out. I did repeat myself there, but it is very essential, because otherwise you just have nothing. You have a character who's just basically a jobber. When you really think about it, they're just a jobber. It's like they're just there to fulfill that one role. They're not there to be interesting. They're not someone you're going to give a shit about after this is over. They're just there for this one role, and that's just girl or boy. And that sort of thing. Like, that was why people like Loud House so much, is that all the girl characters in the Loud House, they're all distinct. They're all distinguishable. They have their own set of personalities and their own sets of wants, likes, and desires and stuff like that. They're not the exact same character. They don't sound the same. They don't look the same. They don't act the same. Depending on certain situations, but either way, they do have their own. Like, they are just different from each other. They're not just some bland girl characters that are just there for the sake of getting in the way of the main character Lincoln. They are something different, and that's just something that I feel like a lot of people tend to fail to remember, is that a lot of the time people love, giving praise to shows because it's like, girl power, they're doing this and that, but it's like, you need to, it's like, make sure the character sticks out. It can't just be the fact that they're a girl. And the same goes for boys. Like, it can't just be the fact that they're that gender. It's like, is there something special to them? Because really think about it, if you met someone who identified as just male or female, and that was all. They're just like, that's all there is to me. It's just, I'm a man, or I'm a woman, or something like that. And it's like, okay, but what do you like? Do you like playing basketball? You like playing video games? You like comic books? You like books in general? Like TV, movies? Like, you got any wants, any dreams of yours? Like, you want to know more about them. There has to be something more about them. If it was just the fact that they're a man or a woman, it'd be like, well, I don't want to continue having any conversation with you because you're boring. It's like, you're boring. Plain and simple. And that's just my take in terms of gender. In terms of sexuality, my thing about sexuality with characters is that it can be important, and I understand the idea of representation matters. Like, it does matter. We should be putting more, like, say, gay characters, bisexual characters, and trans characters in like movies and such. Granted, it kind of should serve a bit of a purpose. You don't want to just throw them in there because, hey, we filled out that quota. No, don't never create a character for the sake of filling a quota. Never do that, because they're just going to be jobbers. That's the thing. Like, that's the word of the day on this one. It's like, avoid jobbers. Okay, you just don't want any jobber characters who are just there for the sake of filling a quota. Like, you just don't want that. But yeah, when it comes to sexuality and such, like, I know being trans isn't really the sexuality that's back into gender, but I digress. The thing about it is that you need to focus more on, the thing about it is you can have a character that is gay, and it's fine if you do that. There's nothing wrong with them being gay. It's just they need something else to them. You should never have a character who is just, I'm gay or I'm bi. Like, you'd be pissed. You'd be just bored hearing about that character, because it's like, what is there to them? You know, it's like if you wrote a character who was just based on who just identified as heterosexual, and that's it. It's all about, I fuck women, or for a female, it's like, I fuck men and stuff like that, and they just left it at that. You'd be pretty pissed and bored with the character, because it's like, that's all there is to you. Just, you have sex with people of the opposite sex. That's the only thing about you. Nothing else. Like, you'd be bored. You would be very bored of that character and say, I wish we didn't have to spend time on that. You know? You'd just be like, that is a boring character, and I don't feel they need to be here. They don't add nothing to anything. They're just here for the sake of just being here. And that's one thing I feel a lot of shows need to keep in mind when trying to add like more LGBT characters, is that make sure they have distinct personalities. Like, back to the Loud House, because it's the most recent in this endeavor. They go as far as to have a character who's the best friend of Lincoln, Clyde, who has two dads. Now, they're both actually very distinguishable from each other. They're different. They have real personalities to them. We don't spend a lot of time with them, but as you watch them, it's like they act like loving parents. They act like straight up kind of slightly obsessive parents, not over obsessive, but more or less protective. I'll say that. They're just very protective of their son, in the sense of, you know, they worry about him. They try to make sure he has everything he needs and stuff like that, but they're very funny at going about it. Like, it's not just the fact that they're gay, you know, there is personality to them. They seem kind of enjoyable characters, and I wish we'd see a little more of them, but we just, I don't know, maybe we'll see more later on. But either way, like, the thing about it is, you just need to make sure, like, the great thing about them is that they are distinguishable characters. Like, they have personality to them. They are different from the stuff. They're not just a typical gay couple. Is like, oh, we're gay, that's the thing, we're gay, that's really all there is to us, is that we're gay. It's like, you would be they would be annoying as shit, and you probably wish they'd be written off the show if that was the case. But they knew how to handle it. And another example of a sort of LGBT character in Loud House would be Luna, as we all know, whoever watches the show. Like, they revealed that she's bi. But the thing is, they established that she has a distinct personality. She is different from everybody else, and there is personality to her outside of the fact that she's bi. In fact, they don't really explore it once they reveal it. Like, once they reveal that she's bi, it's like, okay, this probably won't get explored till like maybe next season. Like, they don't really plan on, like, we haven't seen much that, you know, played up on that. And I feel like that's kind of how they should go about it. It's just, that's kind of the best thing to do, is like, if you're gonna have, you can have characters who are gay, straight, bi, and all that, as long as you put something to them. They can't just be this bland character of just sexuality. Like, that's the most boring, and I mean the most boring shit ever. to just see a character who is this. It was just their sexuality or just their gender. Like, like what makes you stand out? What makes you you? You know, that's the most important. That's what people always like about characters. Like you go down the list of famous characters in like movies and TV shows, you'll find these are all distinguishable characters. They all have their own personalities. They stand out above everybody else because we got to know who they really are. We got to know what their likes, their dislikes, their wants and desires. We got to know who they are, thus outside of just being a male and female. I mean, and just as well being their sexuality. Like, that is something you always have to keep in mind when creating characters. Is focus more on a character's personality. That is the number one rule in my mind when it comes to making characters. Who is the character first and foremost before you focus on whether or not it's a male or female. That honestly, I feel, is the best way to go about it. Personality first, gender second, sexuality third. And those are and sexuality and gender could be interchangeable if you feel like it. Probably wouldn't, but either way. That's just something you always need to keep in mind when trying to create your characters for a certain story, is that they need to be more about their personality. And a good important thing would be, yes, representation does matter. And say you're writing a story that's supposed to be based around the fact of prejudice. You know, for women, it's how they're treated in society, or for gay people, it's how they're treated in society. And the thing is, if you're going to write characters who, you know, are supposed to be facing that struggle, you can do that. But they still need to have something distinguishable about them. You know, they still, like, the key word is personality. They can't just be jobbers for the sake of the story. They have to be someone who sticks out above everybody else. Because otherwise, it's just going to be like, yeah, that's, I guess, supposed to be the everyman, the person you're supposed to imagine yourself as, but you kind of lose, you would lose a lot of people watching because they'll just be like, that seems like a character that's not me, you know? It needs to feel like a unique character. You need a unique character, someone who has something to them. That's the main thing, and I feel a lot of people aspire, like, trying to write characters and try to, you know, make it so they have it's like they're this gender and they're this sexuality. It's like, understand first and foremost, personality. Personality is key when writing your character. If they don't have a personality, people are just going to be like, your brain's more or less going to turn off from paying attention to them. You're not going to really listen to them, because in your mind, that's a jobber. That's someone there for the sake of doing a job. They're not there to be interesting. They're not there to stroke up any controversy or to get me to think differently because of how they are or anything like that. They're just there for the sake of the plot. And that's all I feel is the most important in terms of just characters, in terms of gender, in terms of sexuality, is personality. Always remember, personality is the first thing when writing your character. That is something every writer should understand first and foremost. If you like this video, leave a like, comment, and make sweet love to that subscribe button. And also check out my Patreon if you feel like helping this channel out. Your contributions can help by a lot, and you can gain early access to videos. And just as well, if you pay for certain pledges, you get to make requests of Simple Thoughts, or even of certain TV shows that you want me to review. So go there and check that out. And always remember, it's just a thought.